Hey everyone. Happy Thursday. Hey Ben, what's up? Um, yeah, hi. We're back. It's been a week. We didn't hang out on Monday because it was a holiday. It's fine. It's overrated. It's fine. Um, I'm here today with Jack and Neil Dwyer. You can see them down there below me. Would y'all like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start. So I'm Neil, software engineer. Kind of got my start in software, kind of like late middle school, early high school. I played a lot of video games. I met people on Xbox Live that were software engineers, and eventually I was like, yeah, like how do I make a video game? I want to do this. So met some software engineers on Xbox Live. They kind of led me down the path of like going to Borders, like the bookstore. Those used to be a thing, and bought my first like programming book, learning C, and then just like hobby software for since then, pretty much. And went to college, studied math, graduated college. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like I can't get a job because I studied math. And then I remembered, oh, I do software for fun. I should probably do it for work. I happened to be born kind of in the Silicon Valley area, so got a job in tech. Started a startup, spent 5 years there. Went to big tech for a couple of years, and then left that to start the company I'm working on now with my brother Jack.
Yep. So nice to meet you. I'm Jack. I'm Neil's brother. I got my start. I guess I studied engineering in college, just engineering management actually. Thought I wanted to go more of like the business project manager route. But then I wasn't super satisfied with that. So I actually got my master's in economics. And then I also wasn't super satisfied with that. So I threw all my degrees away and went into data science. I can talk about that later if we need to. Did that for a couple of years and then switched over to a product role. So I was a product manager at a startup for 3 years, very data science focused startup. And then, yeah, now I'm full time on this thing. So we'll kind of get into what we're building in a little bit here.
Yeah, Jack reached out to me on Twitter like a couple months ago. And then we chatted, and then we thought it would be cool to do like a co-stream because I mean they're making like a full on like production app, and we've kind of done that, like kind of. Um, but like it's just kind of cool, I think, to see these sorts of apps in the process in action. Um, Also, hi everybody. Thank you for the raid, Rascal. I appreciate it. Hope y'all had a great stream. If y'all have any questions for Jack and Neil, put them in the chat below. We'll answer them. But beyond that, let's get into it a little bit more, okay?
Awesome.
So, y'all have respectively backgrounds in like data science, sort of project management, and software engineering. So, what is the app we're talking about today? And like, how did you like get to making that? Like, what was your idea?
Yeah, so the app is it's called the universe.gg is a website. We're tinkering around with different names, so don't get married to that name here. But the main premise is virtual worlds, kind of like as a service. So we can spin up virtual worlds, like 3D worlds, kind of like a video game, for online communities, and they can hold events there. They can basically like share a link. Somebody can click on the link and be in this like 3D event world in less than 10 seconds and be like participating in some fun activity with their online community. So that's kind of where we ended up. The journey has been pretty long. Like we a year and a half ago, we were really interested in VR, so we actually like started working in VR. We thought that the Oculus was sort of like the Oculus Quest. We thought that was kind of like the iPhone moment, but for VR, it was like this first amazing piece of hardware. It's still like an amazing piece of hardware, but I think the market's not quite there yet. But we spent a year and a half basically building like the Chuck E. Cheese of VR. It was you play games, get tickets from those games, use those tickets to buy like NFTs. Like that was kind of like the core game loop. So we had this like this Chuck E. Cheese in VR. We tinkered around in different markets there. But we kind of like found that like okay, like VR is just like still like a little bit too early for to do this sort of like lean startup thing. Like you need like a proper game studio, probably like $1 million or so to make a VR game that may or may not return that investment because games are kind of like very hit based. But we got really good at building these kind of like multiplayer 3D worlds, and we were and like we were really interested in like like bringing that over to the web. So that's basically what we did. We kind of like pivoted the same idea over to the web. The reason being is the web is just like very, very low friction for like joining these things. And we haven't seen a lot of like really good web products that like 3D web products like at all really. And the browser has come so far. We thought there was a big opportunity there. So yeah, that's kind of how we like ended up on this idea. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, no, I think that pretty much nails it. We both have big gaming backgrounds. I grew up like I had a guild on Guild Wars. I had a Halo clan. You know, he was like a almost pro gamer for a little bit back in like middle school. And so we really like care about these online communities, and we've had this opportunity to sort of build the next tool that brings them together, and that's really what motivates us. So that's why we're here.
They say, so is this like Teams meets IMVU meets Second Life? I don't know, like most of those, but
Yeah, I think so. Basically what we wanted to do, like if you play like an MMO like World of Warcraft or whatever, you kind of have these like, you make really good friends there. Virtual spaces are like really good for fostering connections, and we kind of wanted to sort of like copy and paste that phenomenon from like a game to like bring it to everybody else who's like not playing an MMO right now, right? So like, you know, the difference, like contrasting us to something like Zoom, like you both like kind of like share a link out, and then you join this like conference room or whatever, this like, you know, virtual space, so to speak. But in Zoom, it's like very awkward because you're all just like right there face to face on webcam. But in a virtual world, it's like it can be much more interesting. There's a lot more like kind of like degrees of freedom, so to speak. So you can have somebody speaking, but I can like emote and dance and clap or whatever, or you can have this event going on where multiple people can be talking to each other at the same time, right? I can like walk up to somebody and meet them. And that's something that can't really happen on Zoom. Like only one person can talk on Zoom at the same time, or Discord or Twitter Spaces. Whereas in this, it's a much more kind of like replicates like the real life conference or event experience where there's a bunch of different like ad hoc interactions that can happen, and that can't really happen on existing platforms.
okay. So like a use case for this, like you could use it for gaming, or you could use it for like school groups.
100%. Yep. Yeah. Really like, because it's a 3D world, you can kind of use it for anything that happens in the real world. So like we started with going to online Discord communities because they have events already. They have things like town halls. They have things like trivia nights, things like that. And it's all sort of like moderated via Discord through like kind of janky Discord bots that are all sort of bolted together. So yeah, we basically started, that's like kind of like our first use case is going to these Discord communities and hosting these events and basically 2xing the value that these events produce. But long term, like we want more, I guess, we want to do things that are actually only possible in a 3D world, right? Things that aren't happening on Discord because they can't. So we actually see this behavior already happening in Discords where it's like, they'll organize this thing where they all go and leave and play some game together, like Among Us or whatever. So we see that there's some appetite for like leaving these flat platforms and going into more virtual worlds. So that's kind of like where we want to get to, is be like the lowest friction, highest fun, casual way to like get your community together and hang out with community members.
Okay. Um, Lady Nazila said, I just finished setting up 27 VR headsets for the school that I just finished working at. My ultimate goal is to do VR with EdTech. VR is for sure making progress, but still has a long way to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I still love VR. I think there's a lot of so the most magical thing about VR to me is that it removes the layer of abstraction between sort of like you and your character. So like in a traditional video, so for example, if I gave my mom an Xbox controller and said like, you know, let's play like Halo or Overwatch or something together, like it'd be a disaster, right? She's just like spinning in circles, running into walls, like it's just like there's no way. She didn't grow up with a controller in hand, right? So it's very hard. But we got our parents a VR headset like for Christmas or something, and we play mini golf like pretty often because you put the headset on, it's super intuitive. You're there, right? It's got a really strong sense of presence, and the social interaction is also very interesting. So I agree. Like I love VR. I love that it it gives more people access to like these to virtual worlds. But hardware is not quite there. It still gives a lot of people a headache. Still pretty high effort to get everything going. But I'm with you.
Someone asked, is it like gather.town?
Yeah, it's a lot like Gather.town. So Gather.town is a 2D platform, but same. I'll say it's got a similar soul to ours. I will say that like Gather.town definitely is more opinionated towards remote work. So they're kind of like a remote video conferencing tool that makes it more ad hoc, where you can walk up to somebody, kind of like a virtual open office in a way. Our opinion is trying to be more like fun, casual. Things that would be very distracting in the workplace. So like fun game nights and stuff like that. I think Gather is sort of like dipping its toes into the more casual gamey type stuff. But definitely we're starting from two different markets for sure.
Born wants to know where y'all are from.
We are from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. So right now we're in San Francisco. Actually, let me see if I can get
reach.
I
don't
think
know what's gonna happen.
anyways, out that window is the Golden Gate Bridge actually, but we grew up like in the East Bay, so about like 30 minutes east of San Francisco. But right now we live in San Francisco, and we love it.
Someone says, rip your wallet.
Yeah. No, it hurts. It hurts the wallet. It hurts the wallet.
Jim asks, as game devs or experienced devs, have you heard of or read The Four Keys to Fun by UX UI gaming design expert?
I haven't, but I'll take a look at that after this. I like those kind of like product type books that can take. Seems like one of those books that distills like somebody's career's worth of wisdom into 100 pages or something. I love that kind of stuff.
Okay. Someone wants to know what you used to create this application. So as we get into that, we probably should show it to people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share the room y'all made for me. I just put it in chat, y'all, and we can go hop over there, and then you can just like talk to us about we heard abstractly what the application was, but talk to us more like while we're looking at it, and then like what you used to build it.
Yep, will do. So I'll let you guys join. I will say mobile is very experimental. So if you're on mobile, you click the link. Who knows? Who knows? If you're on a newer phone, it'll probably work fine. If you're on a phone that I never tested on, then who knows? But yeah, it looks like we're getting a lot of people in here already. That's awesome. We need to add we don't have the voice widget on, so nobody will be able to talk in this one, but you can chat. But it seems like, are you going to share it, or do you want me to just?
I have
you want me to share it?
I have it on my screen right now.
Is it on Twitch? Sorry,
yeah.
I lost your Twitch.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see, so
here we go.
So this is like a basic world that we have. The functions of this world, we don't have screen share set up in this one. It's just like a plugin that you can add. But that would show up on that screen on the right. So if somebody can share the screen, you can like watch YouTube with other people. It has spatial audio. That is also a plugin we didn't add to this, just not to make this stream, just to not dilute the stream that we're on right now. But yeah, this is like the most basic world. We have more complicated ones for different communities. But if you press like any of the number keys, you can like dance. So there's like emotes. So if you press like I1, when you're focused on it, you'll bust some moves. Yeah, there you go. So in terms of what it took to make this, this is kind of like the marriage of a bunch of different technologies all into one. So I guess I'll start with the first thing you see, which is like the 3D world. That is a Unity app. That Unity is pretty good for building cross-platform applications. So this one is a Unity app that builds like the WebGL target. And what that does is it takes all this like C# code that you wrote in Unity, and it takes all of the scenes that you set up in Unity, and it builds it all into basically like a WebAssembly script. So Unity is kind of like does all the hard work there, and then you just host it. You host it somewhere on the back end. So we host it on a CDN, specifically S3. We have it. We host it in S3, and then we point a CDN at it, so it loads super fast no matter where you are in the world. So that's like the Unity side of things. yeah, everyone's dancing. I love it. Beyond that, the Unity is hosted in a web app. So this is hosted in a React Next.js app. And the way I have the architecture set up is Unity basically thinks of the web as like a backend in a way. I try to keep the Unity app very, very dumb because it's very hard to iterate on the Unity app and the web app and the server backend and all these things if they all have their own sort of like logic and state machines running, right? So I treat Unity as dumb as possible, and it just kind of asks the web for things. It doesn't like make its own web requests or things like that. It just kind of asks the web. So that's that end. The web app is kind of where most of the front end brains are. So this is like where your user authentication, like cookies and stuff live. The web app is what's making API requests to the back end. If we had like video and audio screen share and stuff enabled in this room, the web app is the thing that's handling that. It's like telling Unity, hey, here's this like screen share video texture. Here's where you should put it in the world, right? The web app's kind of like handling all that logic. So that, like I said, is a React Next.js app. I use TypeScript instead of JavaScript. I love TypeScript. I won't ever write JavaScript again if I can't help it. It's just so much easier with IDE support and things like that. And then the backend, we have a Node backend. It's typical MVC backend. So that's written in Node. And then we have a typical like SQL database, Postgres on the database, and we have Redis for like caching and things like that. And yeah, that's pretty much the full stack. Oh, I guess we have WebRTC is what powers all of the text or the voice and screen share. So we have another server running that's basically acts as the signaling for WebRTC. Yeah, like I said, the marriage of a bunch of different technologies.
Okay. Some of the things some people say, let's see. Some of them aren't getting, they're getting the endpoint requires authorization. Do you know what that would be about? Or getting a CORS error?
CORS error. I don't know if it's showing up. If it's like showing up as a big full screen, this isn't going to work modal. Then that might be one of the issues we have on mobile. Otherwise, if it's just a bunch of red in the logs, but the app otherwise works, that should be okay. Like maybe the image wouldn't load, but fake response serves needs. Okay, yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. You might try like a hard refresh or something, but that's a new one, and I'm surprised that it works for anybody if that error is happening. So, that's just one of those things. You see it's on the. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I'll look at those issues later. Yeah, that's pretty much like the high level architecture. I'm happy to go into sort of like anything that other people are kind of like interested in double clicking into.
Born, I dance by pressing like 1, 2, 3, those number buttons, okay? So you could dance that way.
Everyone loves the dances. Me too. I'm everyone.
So like speaking from like a or is this open source? Constantly says.
This is not open source. We use some open source software. So like for the video stuff, we use something called LiveKit. They're kind of friends of ours working on open source WebRTC backends. Redis is obviously open source. TypeScript obviously open source. So we use a lot of open source software, but this itself is not open source. Mainly because it doesn't really make sense to make like this sort of like user-facing product. I guess like consumer product like open source, right? But if there's ever like services, like for example, we're gonna swap out the multiplayer system for something that we build when we want to get to like 1,000 people in a room. We're gonna have to sort of like do some open heart surgery on like the back end side of things. Because right now we're just using like a SaaS company to do the multiplayer stuff. We're going to build that in-house. Something like that is something that we would make open source. So like the multiplayer service, right? Something that makes sense for other people to use.
Okay. I'm not really sure what y'all's problems with it are. I don't know.
It's very possible that these are the mobile issues that the mobile stuff, especially with like Safari and stuff like that. I think there's some work to do there.
What's the point of the button? Nazia asked.
Wouldn't you like to know? Actually, no. So the button is just an experiment we were running where it's like we had all these communities and we were going to see if we can do have them compete against each other to see who can get the most button presses as a community. But the button does absolutely nothing. As a proof of concept, though, like people do press the button. So in terms of like the sort of like lean startup, do people do this action, right? Like what's the minimum viable sort of like product here? People do come in and push the button. So we might turn it into basically offer things like webhooks where like, hey, you can push the button and it like puts something in your Discord, or you push the button and it like makes an effect on your Twitch stream, right? Things like that. I think now is where we would go with the button, or just like general in-world interactions. Or push a button and it takes a 10-second video of you dancing and it creates like a 3D TikTok, right? Things like that is like where we kind of like want to go with the, what we can do in the world. So yeah.
Okay. So most of the people in here are little baby devs. We're baby devs. So you mentioned a lot of technologies that like I know, for example. I have no idea though how you got from like TypeScript to this though. Like I know Unity's a thing, but like how, I don't know if that's like something you can even answer, but like how did that like work? How did you do that? How does one do that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is, so this is going to be more of like a human answer and less of like a technical answer, but the easiest way is to sort of know, like have a vision of like what you want to build. And then, I mean, the fact that you guys are here watching this stream means you have the right kind of, the right kind of like mindset to just sort of like figure out how to execute on that vision. But a lot of it is exactly that. It's like, hey, I want to build this 3D world. Like, what's the easiest, like, what's the best, like, sort of game engine for building 3D worlds, right? It's like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to write this manually in, with like native WebGL calls. I'm going to use something like Unity. So like, okay, Unity can do the 3D stuff. But actually, like, I want this to be a web app. I don't like, I want a lot of the UI and stuff like that. I don't want to build that in Unity. So I'm like, okay, let me embed the Unity app in like a React page and do that. And then it's like at some point it's like, okay, Unity needs to be able to talk to the web page. So you build this sort of like bridge where Unity can make basically like calls into like the public functions on the web page, right? So you develop this sort of like API between Unity and the web page, and then like, oh, actually, I want multiple people using this together. And it's like, okay, now I need a backend, right, where everybody's sort of talking to the same server and there's like signaling that happens. So it all sort of like, and this is stuff that you just sort of like get better at just the more stuff you build. Like just always be building is kind of like the core like theme here. But so you get familiar with like various technologies like backend. It's like, okay, you're gonna make like an MVC like Node app using Express and whatever, right? So you get like better at this kind of stuff, but certainly like a lot of it is just sort of having this goal in mind and just chipping away at it, reading through docs. It's like some of the stuff we do in Unity is not like a common thing to do in Unity. It's like most people use Unity to build iPhone apps and like Windows apps, right? They don't use it for web often. So like the layer that where Unity is talking to the web is not like something that's super well documented, but it is there if you like, dig around in their docs and look at Stack Overflow and go sleuthing around through the forums. Like you do find this stuff. Yeah, I think like the best advice is just like have a vision and like try building it. And you might find that it's just like impossible. Like we found that in VR, like we were basically trying to do like watch YouTube with your friends at one point. It turns out we would have had to do some custom work on like the Mozilla. We would have to make our own custom Mozilla browser, basically like change the source code of Mozilla. It's like this is not worth it, right? We just change the product around it. But most of the time, you can just push through and sort of like figure out how to build the thing you want to build.
Okay. So like we could use this space, like you said. Here, wait a second. Let me get back over here. We could use this space to, like, if you go up on this up here, you could, like, in theory, share your screen, and then everyone could look at your screen together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, over here, is this the shared screen, or is this like a you could play a video or something?
Yeah, so the blank one is the shared screen. The
Oh,
other
that's
one's
the
just like
shared
a
screen.
logo. Yeah, we have the ability to sort of like change these worlds. Like the communities we talk to typically have somebody that like can build like a 3D artist type person. So they just like give us a 3D file and we like kind of work with them. We don't have like a self-serve like thing yet. That's where we want to take it. But yeah.
So if I wanted to change how this world looked, how would I do that? Or could I do that?
Right now, not really. Right now, not really. There's a couple like we're tinkering with different. It's mostly like a product question. Is like how do we best want to do this? So like there's apps like VRChat, for example, where they basically VRChat allows for users to create their own worlds, but it's very technical. It's like you download Unity. They give you this sort of like Unity template, and you edit a scene in Unity, and you like upload the sort of like the result of that to their website somewhere, and that's how VRChat does it. But then like on the flip side, there's also apps like Minecraft where it's not technical at all. It's like you're in this world, and it's like you swing your pickaxe around, and you can like sort of like build the world in like this like voxel-based world. And there's like things, those are like two ends of the spectrum where one is like, okay, you need a hardcore 3D artist to build this world. And the other is like, okay, like my 8-year-old, like, like nephew or whatever can do this, right? So there's different degrees of it. I think we need to figure out, right now on our end, it's like we're figuring out, is like, what is the market that this makes the most sense in? We've been talking a little bit about doing more like B2B type market where it's like,
B2B meaning.
hey, business to business. So our customers would be like other companies, right? So
Oh,
it'd be
okay.
like, hey, like you want to have a big conference, or you want to have a job fair, or you want to do even like sexual harassment training or something like that. It's like do it in our world. In that world, like we're not going to make Minecraft, right? It doesn't make any sense to have like a Minecraft world, voxel-based world for that. We would work with them and create this like perfect environment that works for that market. But if our market is going to be like more kids, or if the product is really going to be centered around world building and things like that, then yeah, maybe we do a more voxel based thing. But a lot of it is going to come from the users and the market, and I think that's like, I think just generally as building a company, I think that's the best way to do it, is like sort of like figure out where the demand is first before you do all the work up front, because you might build something amazing that nobody uses, and then it's like, why'd you do that? So yep.
Okay. So like as of right now, like we as like the users couldn't like modify this world. So if you make like a world, it would just look like this, right?
Yeah. So we have these like templates right now. This is like the first template that we're going with. The early experiment we're going to do on this is allow users to change the colors and change the images, things like that. There's also the ability to add like widgets to the world. So there's obviously like the screen share widget is one, but there's also like a background music widget where you can add a widget and now the world has background music, right? So there's like things like that where you can put your own flavor into it. But in terms of the actual 3D part, right now we don't let users do that themselves. Basically, how we approach that is that's like very much hand-to-hand combat there, where it's like they DM Jack on Twitter or Discord or whatever. Jack's like, yeah, we want to work with you. Like, let's do this. Then we work with them on getting like 3D models and things like that for the world. And then we just do it like kind of manually. But yeah, there's definitely like an appetite for that kind of stuff. We're just trying to figure out what's the best way to do that from a product perspective. Like, are we going to work with big companies who have a budget for creating 3D models, or are we going to be working with groups of friends who want to play, who are in like the same fantasy league or something, and they don't have that budget, but they still want to sort of like add their own brand into, or their own sort of like inside jokes and stuff into the world. Like it's definitely more of like a product thing, and I'll be the first to say, like, we don't know what we're doing on the product. It's very much like talking to as many users as possible, trying it in different markets and things like that. And then the best case is like the users kind of like, it becomes so obvious what the users need that you just build that, and you don't have to play these guessing games.
Okay. I mean, you have at least 30 people watching you right now. Is there anything you want to ask, like, from, like, potential, like, users right now, like, with a large amount of people here to answer?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, what's your craziest idea for how you would use this? Just assume anybody in your life could have a 3D world. What would you want to do in it? I think that would be like number one question, is just like, what do you guys, like, people are more creative than me. So like, what do you want to do in a 3D world with your friends? Virtual concerts. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That's like, I need to get Dua Lipa. That's my dream, is when we get Dua Lipa, that's how we know we made it. Or Imagine Dragons. Okay. Yeah, comedy shows. Yeah, we had a community do open mic night. So they were like this community. They were actually like an NFT community. I don't know how you guys feel about NFTs. Some people hate them, some people love them, some people are indifferent. But this NFT community was centered around music. So they had like these sort of like music-based NFTs, and their community is all about like music and vibes and whatever. And they did like an open mic night, which was awesome. Public executions. Okay, yeah. I love it. Presidential debates. Yeah, Jason Bourne. I like that username, by the way. That's clever.
Like, so I'm trying to think of like how this would work. Like, y'all, if we like wanted to hang out, like right now we're hanging out. You can see me. Y'all are hanging out in chat, right? Like, how would we use this? How would you want to interact with other people in stream here, or me? Like, we'd all be here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for streamers, I think there's a lot of interesting use cases where, I think it's awesome that something that happens in the world could affect something that happens on stream. So whether it's some sort of crowd-based game where you can sort of like pit your audience against each other in some fun social game, something like that, or it could even just be as simple as streamer meet and greets, where it's like, hey, like, I pay $10. I donate to your stream $10. It gets me like 2 minutes to just like hang out with my favorite streamer. Kind of similar to what you see at like TwitchCon and Comic-Con and stuff like that, where there's like these meet and greets that happen. So I think there's like all sorts of stuff like that. That's really interesting. I think like you guys being a developer focused stream could be really interesting, where there could be interesting things where like the audience can deploy some sort of like code or something like that affects the world. So it's like maybe you do a challenge where you have these like webhooks or whatever, where like the audience can like write some program that like makes the world like explode, or like do some really like interesting sort of like things where you can tie in your the overall goal here, which is like you guys are trying to learn to be better developers and things like that, and better engineers. Like, could you gamify that process and make it much more fun, instead of just building the traditional kind of like to-do list app, right? So like I think there's like a lot of like amazing ideas here, like for where we can take this. Like we want this to be just like, I don't know. I'm tinkering with different kind of like one-liners, but one of them that like resonates with me is like the Shopify for 3D worlds, where there's like, there's all these ways to like, add plugins and add like widgets and like change, just like overall, just like, put your flavor in the environment. But still is so open-ended that you can pretty much kind of like do anything there. I think there's like just a lot of interesting things there. Jake, do you have anything there?
No, you're nailing it. I'm reading the chat. I've got a second screen here, and I'm loving these ideas.
Streaming's hard. Yeah, I'm reading the chat too, and I'm like using two parts of my brain at once here.
Blackboard says, kind of a hot take, I would really like an online space where people are verified with something like ID.me, where bands are bands on their actual identification, like a driver's license. Online harassment persists through anonymity, and I'd like a space where it can't be ruined by people coming in to hurl slurs at them.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like, I think like for us, it's like, okay, I think it goes back to like what's the market, where it's like, hey, if we have like a moderation becomes really, really important when you have spaces that are very public, right? It's like if we have like just a public downtown, and anybody goes there and there's like this sort of like public city, then moderation becomes very important because you're interacting with strangers a lot of times. Whereas if our customer is like B2B, like our customer is like companies and everybody in the world is like works for the same company, it's like, okay, nobody's like saying bad words in their like company like meetup, right? So it definitely goes back to market. And I think one of the big problems with public social apps is like always moderation. Like as soon as the app exists, like you're going to be dealing with like the dirtiest corners of the internet. In fact, those corners of the internet are often the early adopters of new products, which is just, I don't know why that is, but that just tends to be the how it goes. So yeah, moderation becomes an issue, like, very quickly. I'm not familiar with the online identity stuff. I think that probably is a hot take in terms of like, people want some sense of privacy on the internet, and you have to sort of like weigh that with moderation. But I think there's I've seen moderation tools that are more AI based, where you can kind of fingerprint people without sort of like compromising their identity in a way. So like there's definitely like stuff there.
So, so you can add sort of like functionality to have like people talking in here, right?
Yep. Yeah, and we can do spatial. We can do so spatial means if you're close to somebody, you can hear them. If you're far, you can't hear them. So you can have multiple conversations in the same room at once, which I think is pretty novel. Like that literally cannot happen on Twitter Spaces or Discord. So we can do things like that. We can also do Twitter Spaces like audio, where you kind of like hand the mic to somebody, and then everybody in the room can hear them. Yeah.
Okay. Um, are you ever gonna have it so like the little faces, like you could have a picture? Are you gonna have like a live like webcam or anything like that?
Yeah. We actually been talking about that. We want to do that. Right now, our focus is we're really trying to get it to work well on mobile because mobile is like, in fact, I've never seen an app work on mobile that's like 3D, where you click a link and you're in a 3D world without downloading like something from the App Store. I think if we get that right, I think there's like quite a bit of magic there in terms of like what you can do as a product. So once we do that, we're going to be experimenting with bringing in more of your, basically bringing more of your personality into it, whether that's a webcam or even if the avatars were rigged, like the faces were rigged. Rigged means the skin is connected to some like bone structure.
Okay.
So if we can do that, then we can actually just like do face feature detection locally and just send that information over the wire. So you can smile and then your avatar smiles, but you're not like sending your full webcam data over.
Mm.
And you can wink and you can blink, and this stuff happens already in things like VR chat, but I haven't seen it on such like a lightweight platform. So all this stuff is like stuff that we're really interested in doing. I'm like right now the struggle, I think, or I won't say struggle, but we're one engineer, that's me. Jack is the sales guy, and then we have like maybe 10 different sort of like experiments we want to run on different markets. So one of them might be, we go the more social route and we create the best damn social experience possible. And that would be like, okay, yeah, we do the avatar rigging and we do all this like webcam stuff and just do something like that. The other is like, hey, we're like going to be an event platform for like big companies, right? So like there's all these like different ways we can take it. And that's like what we have to prioritize internally here.
Okay. Lark says, can you create your own unique worlds in this, like a world to learn CS, GS, and algos, or is it always the same?
We're right now, if you ask us or you have a 3D model and you talk to us, and like we'll put that in here. So we work with people kind of more manually to create custom worlds, we're actually working with we have some friends here who have a company called Third Web, and they want to do they basically want to do a live like kind of code developer relation event where they basically talk to their users and do stuff like that. So I think like education, that I'll put that in like the education bucket. I think that's like a really interesting use case here because a lot of online educators already have events. Not even just like code related for sure, but I mean, how many like online kind of like Ty Lopez type people are, do things. They have these like online events where you pay like $100 and you can like learn how to like be a better salesperson or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of there might be a market there, and I think that's going to require like custom worlds for each one. So yeah.
I think it would be cool to have like what you said about like widgets earlier. It would be cool to have a world that you could build, and
Mhm.
just have it sort of persist on like your database or whatever, and then be able to jump in there and be like, oh, look, I built a staircase. I don't know, like, just something like that. And then people can also do that as well. So then if that was done, I don't know, abstractly for non-coders with like different elements, that would be fine. But also like if you were a coder and that's something you learned how to code, then it could be a really good place to be like, oh, look, I made a staircase, things like that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like, and we can work our way up to it too, right? Like you can do, I think webhooks. I don't know if you are familiar, if your community is familiar with webhooks, but a webhook is typically one service. You configure basically like an external API call in a service. So an example is Discord has webhooks for example, if you want to do something every time somebody joins your Discord, you can do that with a Discord webhook. And I think doing that in a 3D world is like very interesting. Like you press the button, something happens externally, right? Or you walk up to this, you walk up to like a camera or something, and now you can take a picture and that like posts a webhook to some like to your Instagram or whatever. Now it, like post like that photo on your Instagram. I think like webhooks is one interest. Like webhooks from world to outside the world is interesting. And I think there's also an opportunity for webhooks from outside the world into the world where somebody joins your Discord or makes a tip on Twitch or something like that, and it affects the world in some like cool way, right? Where it's like, yeah, if somebody tips you whatever $10 on Twitch, like now the world like fireworks go off in the world, and it's like this like really amazing thing. So yeah, I think that's where we like start, and then eventually what I want this to do to become is basically if you can make a website, you can program a 3D world, right? It's like kind of if you can write a website, you can make a metaverse. Like that's kind of like where I want this to be, where you can basically attach your own scripts to basically any object that exists in this world, and tell it to do things as a reaction to like kind of things happening. That's like kind of the long-term vision is it becomes like totally programmable.
Mm, yeah. I think it'd be cool too if you could have like you have like this persisting world, right? And you had like a board where
Mhm.
you could like have like events happening here so people could walk into the world and be like, "Oh yeah, Rufio's streaming on Monday," like or whatever. It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because one of the product challenges right now is the world is only interesting when other people are in the world. So that's why we're kind of like targeting events right now because it's hard. It's actually like hard to get people to do something at the same time. You're a Twitch streamer. That's like Twitch is hard, right? Like how many followers do you have? And like look at sort of like the funnel there, right? It's like I don't know how many followers you have, but I'm assuming guys it's like in the thousands. Yeah, 3.4 thousand followers, 34 people show up at the same time to your stream, right? So it's very hard to get people to do something at the same time, but
Mm-hmm.
we can start adding more of those what I call like asynchronous features into the world where it's like, okay, now it's not really like it's not necessarily like only a live event space, but it's something where like somebody can come and like graffiti on the wall, and now that like stays there, and you can sort of like read those messages or whatever, or kind of becomes your like 3D homepage in a way. So yeah, that's like another thing that we're it's like another thing in that sort of like decision tree that turns into like 10 different ideas. That's like one of those like kind of nodes on that tree.
Right. Token Toker says, "Explain to me how a grimy warehouse techno party would manifest in this world."
Wait, what's that?
Warehouse.
Grimy warehouse techno party manifesting this world. Well, token toker.
We'd have to add some new dances, that's for sure.
Yeah, we only have 2 dances. Number 2, by the way, that button, that's a very, very
Grimy. Grimy.
that's a nasty dance, right? So I think we got the grimy parts check. And so then there's the warehouse technical party. Actually, I want to do this. Look at that. It's just straight nasty. Oh my God. I want to do something where so like browsers now have this technology called web audio, where you can actually parse audio data into like raw audio data, basically. So you can take a song and you can get from it the like beats and like the different frequencies, and you can like actually run some like some basically like frequency analysis on the audio. And what that means product wise, like I can take a song and make the world dance. I can take a song and make the walls move and the lights and a light show that's all sort of like based on the song. And I think that would be the techno part of that. And then the warehouse part would be very easy. We just get warehouse in here. And yeah, then now you have this like nasty, or what'd you say? Grimy yeah. Techno party, warehouse techno party. That's how you do it, folks. Yeah. So
Scani says, how difficult would it be to do spatial audio for, say, 1,000 peeps in a room?
I don't know. I need to write a load test for that, basically. But how I would approach it as an engineer is, so like I said, it's hard to get people to do something at the same time. So it's probably hard to get 1,000 people to test an alpha at the same time. So the way I would do that is I would put some like flag in the website where it can pretend to be a user, and it actually like simulates them talking. So it just like creates this audio stream, sends it over the real network, pretends like it's a microphone, right? So that'd be like step 1, is like be able to simulate the being a user with audio. And then I would also simulate their movement, so they'd be like walking around. And then I would just see like what is the benchmark here? Like, okay, right now everybody is connected to one server for voice. So like, can the server handle it or not? Right? I suspect it can handle it. Audio on a server, there's no encoding or decoding happening on the server. The server just sort of is the plumber in a way, where it just like streams the data to the participants. I suspect the issues are going to be on the client, where like one client isn't going to want to listen to, isn't going to be able to handle decoding 1,000 audio streams. I think that's it's certainly true on mobile. It's probably true even on pretty beefy setups. So at that point, then you do then it's like more of a client problem, where the client actually doesn't want to subscribe to all 1,000. They're just going to subscribe to people within 20 meters of you. And then that's kind of like how it would go from there. So, but yeah, typically like the problem solving process would be first you absolutely need to make a test. Like you can't just guess on stuff like that, like because you'll probably optimize like the wrong thing. You'll probably optimize something that wasn't even a problem to begin with. So you need to get like a test and a simulation running, and then I would just kind of go from there, and then piece by piece go down like what is the what's the bottleneck here.
Okay. Bitfree says, in my humble opinion, the jackpot, oh my goodness, is when you make some system that lets people become creators of new stuff in the world, so that escalates exponentially, gives people ways to express themselves and to spend time in there, inviting and attracting others to do just the same.
Yeah, totally agree. Like user-generated content is I think the only way to make I won't say the only way, but a very good way of making a sort of $1 billion company for like social product. So like Roblox is an example of this. Like Roblox does not make games. They actually just sort of like built a game engine and then made it very easy to host games that you build. But there is a problem with that, where you need quite a few creators for there to be sort of like enough critical mass for a non-creator to come and have fun on this platform. So Roblox, I don't know what the real numbers is, but I'm guessing 1% of creators produce sort of like 99% of the fun content on Roblox. It's like the same with YouTube. It's like, it's same with Twitch. It's like all these platforms kind of have that same sort of like power law where 1% of the top creators actually serve like 99% of like the other consumers. It's like YouTube. It's like the Mr. Beasts of the world and things like that are getting 99% of the views. There's like a way to do that where it's like you can kind of cold start by making a lot of the games yourself at first. But certainly there's a bit of a chicken and egg with the user-generated content approach of things where if there's no content, there's no users. If there's no users, there's no incentive to make content, right? So you have to sort of like bootstrap it. Reddit famously did this by basically just like manually posting like a ton of links themselves as different users. So they made like 100 fake users, the founders, and they would just like post a bunch of links manually themselves and pretend like there was a lot of activity on Reddit. That's a bit harder to do when you're talking about 3D worlds and games, but it's not impossible. There's potentially something there.
Interesting. What would it be like? So like, how would you do like games in this world? Like, do you like connect a game to it and you can like jump into it together, or is it like would you make games within the world, like games that are specifically in this world?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what kinds of games you're making. So I'll put them into like kind of like two categories. There's like real-time games, so that would be like a first-person shooter, and then there's like asynchronous games, so that would be like poker, right? So poker is a lot easier to make than a first-person shooter, or a lot easier to make a platform for people to make games like poker because you're just dealing with events, right? It's like I get dealt a hand. I have an action as a user. It's like my turn. I have an action. So it's all just sort of like one state machine. Whereas a first-person shooter, it's quite a bit more difficult because that's happening at 60 frames a second. You can't every time you do something in the world, you can't make a call to a server and have it respond with like, hey, this is like now the new state of the world, right? It can't just be one sort of like central state machine. So one of them requires kind of like a custom game engine type thing. So that's like Roblox, right? Roblox made a game engine where they made it easy for people to build things like first-person shooters. That's like their core product is this like game engine. It's a lot of work, but it's pretty amazing, right? Like all the stuff that people are making in there. The poker-like thing is probably what we would start with if we were going down this route, which is let people just write their own sort of like backends, and we use like webhooks and things like that to basically to get the state of the world and give them some crude way of like rendering the state in the 3D world where if it's poker, it's like a deck of cards and you sort of like, there's sort of like things you can do there. But I kind of like went on a tangent there and forgot your initial question, but it's a hard problem, I guess, is like the way I'll put it.
So one thing that I have noticed about streaming is I'll play background music, right? And then Twitch will get mad at me and it'll be like, "How dare you? You do not own the copyright to this. Like, fuck you." Um, so like if you were to like you said you might put music in the background, how would you navigate something like that? Like people being like, "Well, how dare you? You can't play our music in the background," you know?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we don't really have for us, like, we don't really have the content, the sort of like persistent content after the work, after the event. I mean, there's some things where it's like, um, if we want to like put a video camera in the world and you create little like TikTok clips or whatever. But for the most part, we're live content, and I think it's pretty hard to get caught DMCA'd on like live events. I don't know if that happens for you, but my understanding with Twitch is like if you're playing Dua Lipa on your stream, like during the stream it's going to be fine, but it's like your VOD at the end is going to be like taken down, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So if we were to solve that problem, it would sort of have to be built into the product. We might have to move rooms here in a second, but you would have to be a product feature where it's like, hey, I want to record it for YouTube, and the product would have to know, okay, turn the background music off for this recording or whatever, right? But it's hard to do that on the product side unless you build basically the after the fact tool that exists on YouTube where they can automatically detect the audio and sort of like take it out. But it's I think it's just like mostly a product thing of really clearly having actions for like, hey, I want like I'm intending to build a stream that needs to remove this background audio, right?
Okay. So you said that you might have to move rooms in a second. Is that like end of stream sort of thing, or is it like?
I don't know.
Well,
Jack, do we have to move rooms?
Yeah, if we can move in a few minutes, or if now's a good time for a quick intermission, we can find another room, come back in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. We can just chat.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, cool. We'll be back on this same Google Meet.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do y'all think? I definitely am not that high level yet, I think. There's a lot of potential, but also there's like a lot, like, because there's a lot of potential, there's a lot to like work on, you know what I'm saying? Cool idea, but can go down pretty quickly. So I basically built this with vanilla JavaScript, right? Hey, Wisconsin. Yeah, we are hanging out right now with Jack and Neil Dwyer, who made like basically like a 3D meeting platform place, and we've been talking about like their backgrounds and like what does the app do, what is the potential for the app sort of thing. And they're changing rooms, which is why they're not here for a second. But here is like, what's it called there? Whatever it's called, I don't know what it's called. Oh my goodness. Application. And then here is the room that you see, or well, I was hanging out in. You can't see it right now, obviously, but oh yeah, blood. I haven't ever heard of VR chat, so they are just changing rooms. I guess they're in an office space. Please let me know if there are any questions you want to ask them, like, you know, they're here. Or if you have any questions you want to ask Neil about just like, I don't know, coding in general. Hey, do you remember what we said about not talking about people's appearances born? Like, that is very nice of you, but still. They didn't say it was explicitly business to business. They said they thought that it could be, but they're trying to figure out, like, where's the best, like, user base for this right now, I guess is what I understand. But it would be cool to have people interact in 3D world with their colleagues. We'll mention that one on stream when they get back. You don't know what it is? It's a meeting place. That's what it is. Like an online sort of. Oh, they're back. Wait a second. An online sort of meeting space. Here we go.
All right.
Okay. Oh no! Wait a second. Could you? Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can. I just need to change the mic now. We have Jack's cut out of it, so.
Oh, I can just do this.
Okay, there you
go. Dialed.
All right, so I forgot where we were, but yeah, good to be back.
So Lark said, you said this was business to business, right? So for normal people in the workforce, it might be cool to interact in a 3D world with their colleagues.
Yeah, I think so. To be clear, like we're not like married to business. We just think it might be easier to build like a business going that route at first, because when you're going like B2C, business to consumer, you need quite a few more users to make a successful product. But I will say the reward is quite a bit bigger as well, right? It's like Facebook's a bigger company than like, I don't know, some random B2B company that you've never heard of, obviously. Yeah, I think colleagues is really interesting. Like we've thought about just like team bonding type events and things like that, where I was at a big company before this, and every team has like a budget for that kind of stuff. And especially as more companies are like remote first, like I would imagine they'd be happy to spend their kind of like team bonding budget on stuff like this, where you set up like a trivia night, or you set up like a escape room or something like that. Um, I think there's like definitely something there. I think even like non-work groups where it's like groups of friends can kind of like watch the sports game or something together in this room, or watch anime together, or like do this thing that like maybe you don't do as often anymore because maybe you don't live near your friends anymore, whatever, or you just don't have time to like travel as much. Like I think like stuff like that is also really interesting. Um, but yeah, 100%. Like um, my preference as a human is to build things for consumers, because I think it's just way more fun, and you can be a lot more creative that way. But it's harder to build a business. It's harder to build a business in that market. So reality you know, might kick in. But yeah, for sure, 100% agree.
All right. Dan also said a lot of these applications like Discord start off trying to get huge numbers of users for free before monetizing anything. Is that the only way to make this kind of software work?
Um, no, not necessarily, because like as an example, so you can make money off users without like huge amounts of users, I guess I'll say, where it's like something like Fortnite is a free app, but they make their money by selling in-app purchases, and one user who spends $10 is already quite profitable relative to a monthly product where you're struggling to get users to spend $10 a month, like because there's just so many like kind of like more opportunities for people to spend in-app purchases, to buy skins and emotes and stuff like that. Discord's like a weird one where I don't think they're monetizing it well at all right now. Like they have like server boosting and things like that, but they don't have like in my opinion, they haven't really monetized to their potential yet. Another example is something like YouTube, where they started out with free, and then they threw so many ads at you to the point where it's like, okay, you can make money just by on ads, but really they're making more money now, I think, by YouTube Premium or whatever, because the ads are so annoying that you'll pay to get rid of it. On this platform, it's for sure the case that you need a lot of users to make a successful business on a consumer app. But I think along the way, like you can make money along the way. Without having like a million daily users. There's also the case of, if you do start getting users, you can raise money quite easily. If maybe obviously this market is a little worse than it was a year ago, but if you can show on graphs that, okay, you're getting like last week I had 100 DAUs, this week I have 200. The next couple weeks it goes 400, 800, 1600, and you start to see that like exponential growth, and you can raise enough money to like kind of push the business part of it back, and just really focus on making like an amazing product and kind of like taking over the world. And then once you do have users, it's very easy to, once you do have like sort of like that million DAUs or whatever, you can flip a switch and start making money. So there's a lot of different strategies for like building a business. I think like the common thing to all the strategies is like find a market where the users are retained, like that you built a product for them and they like it and they keep coming back. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's B2C or B2B or whatever. That's always going to be the case. Like make sure you have the right market and the users, and you're building something for them, and you kind of like provide them value. And then there's like different ways to make money after that.
I feel like this is a good segue for, so you made this app, right? But this
Yep.
is, you also made like a startup, like this, you have like a parent company or a startup that has this app, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how has that process been? How has it been making like a startup?
Well, Jack's kind of like the everything else guy. I try and stick to engineering as much as possible. So maybe Jack can go into that.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in. Hello, if you forgot what I sounded like, this is it. Sorry to disappoint. So I think we worked on apps pretty much before and after work. We would do like a couple hours a day for 3 or 4 years before this, and then a year and a half ago, we kind of were like, okay, we want to get more serious about this. That was a really big decision. I don't know if you want me to elaborate too much on like what being a founder is like, but I'm happy to. Um, yeah, it was pretty scary. It's like, okay, you go from like making, we live in San Francisco. We were on San Francisco salaries, but it's not like that money goes any further. It's like everything costs double or triple here. Like I can promise that. And so, we basically had to make the choice. Like, do we believe in ourselves and this product enough to do this? And at some point you don't get a clear answer. I think that's the tough part about tough decisions is there's no clear answer. You just sort of have to make the leap one day. And so a year and a half ago, Neil quit his job. He was at a big tech company. On that path, he was a really good engineer there, and could have done the promotion thing, but he's like, no, I want to do this. And I was, getting my footing as a product manager, and kind of the same thing. It was like, all right, well, we have this opportunity. We've kind of like figured out that 3 to 4 years was it wasn't all wasted time. It wasn't like we were just building and like threw all it away. You sort of learn how to actually start a company and how to build products. And as Neil talked about a lot on this, how to find a market and kind of build to that market. A lot of people get stuck in the build trap, where you're just building things and you're shipping code. So you feel like you're making progress, but it's like running on a treadmill. You're expending energy, but you're not getting anywhere. That was sort of the first few years. And so, once we'd kind of gotten over that, we felt like, okay, we're ready to take the jump, we're as ready as we'll be, without, like we both don't have families or anything. So it made sense there. And then, yeah, I saw I've been following the chat a little bit here, talks of venture capital and do we have full-time jobs? So we don't have full-time jobs. We truly had the proper startup journey where like, okay, we had a product, we were trying to raise VC money, that failed. We were like broke for a while. So like just basically like scraping together pennies to pay rent. Recently we've raised a little bit of money, which is good. So we can feed ourselves. You should try that sometime if you haven't. That's been interesting. As for like, as Neil said, I'm the everything else guy. So we're obviously trying to find a market right now. So that's a lot of like me. Basically, it's like, all right, this week we're targeting, like as Neil said, Web3 communities. Or this week we're talking to Twitch streamers or YouTubers or companies. It's like really like we're pretty confident. And to answer the value proposition of this product, we see in the same way that like Minecraft or Roblox, or like back when I was younger, like Halo or World of Warcraft, really like fostered these connections and created these like really strong friendships. The pandemic sort of slapped us all in the face with like, who actually has friends. And I found out I didn't have a lot, and we want to create a space where it's like everybody can sort of not only just exist in a Discord channel or in a Twitch chat as a username, but also have an avatar that they can kind of take on that identity. They can hang out together and more than just talking. And also, with a lot of the existing mediums, you sort of like get stuck with 2 or 3 people are sort of the only people that can talk. In Discord, like if you have 4 different conversations going on in one text channel, you're in for a bad time. And then a voice chat, like you like literally can't have any more than one person talking at a time. So our vision with the app is to basically take that sort of like ability to create connections and feel close to the people in your community, and provide the medium for that. So yeah, I think that's been what we're trying to offer here, and that's sort of been my experience. Is like it's been very hard. Sales is not something I've ever experienced before. I am certainly a tech guy, and having to put on my sales hat has been tough. And then finding a market is like you're like throwing darts at a wall, but you don't know what the dartboard looks like. It's dark in the room, and like you only get to turn on the lights once you've failed, to see how close you were to the bullseye. But then like when you turn the lights off again, the dartboard moves, and you're like right back to square one. So we're working on it, and that's what it's like. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. What? So the beard comment is because most of the other people I've had on here have had beards. Born, we don't talk about people's appearances.
Well, I'll take it, even if it's just because I have a beard. You believe in me, and that means a lot. I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah, we got a little jump party.
Yeah,
Oh
the people
yeah, I
are
love it.
having really fun being on stream here. There you go. There's another thing people are on stream right there.
Yeah, no, I love that's my favorite part of the Twitch streamer market that we're looking at um, is passive participants can kind of turn into active participants, which is something that you can do in text chat, but it's very kind of like hard otherwise to do that on Twitch.
Right. Peter says, so this is a non-VR version of VR chat.
Kind of, yeah, kind of. I think we might end up going a different route, like VR chat, and this is kind of just my opinion. I don't know how they think of themselves, but in my opinion, VR chat, their core value prop is making the best sort of most high fidelity avatar system possible, where you can truly be you could truly take on another identity. And VR chat's like amazing at that. Like they have really good face tracking and body tracking, and an entire like industry was born from it called VTubing, where there's like these like avatar based influencers. It all came from like VR chat. I think for us, um, it's possible we go that route, but I think for us, it's more likely that we go the route of creating really fun experiences. So you click a link, and now you're playing something that looks like Mario Kart with your community in less than 10 seconds. Like more like a truly event based route, or like the B2B thing that I've been talking about, where it's like, hey, there isn't like a good 3D platform for like straight up a conference, right? Like you can't have TwitchCon in a virtual world right now. So like I think we're more likely to take on use cases like that because because VR chat already exists. So why compete against somebody that's already doing something really well? Actually, yeah, there is no B. That's probably why we wouldn't choose like the straight up like like avatar route. But it's possible VR chat like thinks of themselves differently. Maybe they want to be the next Roblox or something like that, or Rec Room or whatever. So yeah, that's just like my opinion. But yeah, you can kind of think of it as similar to VR chat in the sense that it's a social 3D product that doesn't have like a sort of like core like kind of like game loop, if you will.
Okay. Lark says, tough question. What if you guys fail?
That's actually the beautiful thing about this industry is typically when you fail in tech, um, especially if you showed that you kind of did something cool, you kind of fail upwards in a way where this actually happened at my first startup where I worked at a startup that eventually actually got acquired by Twitch, called Bebo. And I left Bebo a couple months before this happened, but the Bebo is basically like a failing product. We didn't have like good retention. We didn't quite have product market fit, but the team was like really amazing. We built a lot of really cool stuff, and then Twitch basically acquired like Bebo for the team, and now everybody that worked at Bebo then worked at Amazon, like Twitch. So you kind of have like the failing a startup is like it's not the end of the world. Like obviously there's some sunk cost. I'm like, oh my god, like I just spent the last 2 years building this thing, and I just like literally threw it all away. But typically it opens up more opportunities than it closes in tech, because a lot of the skills are transferable. Being in a startup already, you network so much more than you would otherwise. Because it's kind of like the name of the game. Like you're talking to investors, you're talking to other people doing interesting things. You're networking with a lot of other founders. You're networking with people like you, right? You just like meet so many people that typically you'll fail upwards. Like you'll end up somewhere better than the only thing you lost out on is like 2 years of a salary, but the opportunity you get might be worth way more than that. Even if you were just strictly looking at it from a financial perspective.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I'll say startup time is sort of like dog years. Like 1 month in startup time is like 7 months in a real job. I have grown professionally in the last 6 months far more than I grew in the last like 4 years at my corporate tech job. So that's another fun thing.
Born asked, in all business as a business owner myself, doesn't it almost seem like you're creating a product before identifying what the use is? And that,
Yeah.
Totally,
yeah.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I can speak to that. Maybe Neil can speak to that too. So when we initially started, we basically made that mistake. So first we had the kind of virtual reality Chuck E. Cheese. That was like a lot of conjecture around there needs to be more free apps in virtual reality. We really like this idea of like providing games every week. We can like roll out a new arcade game. And VR we saw was like kind of this, we thought it was going to be rocket ship. So that was like, yeah, a lot of conjecture. As we sort of pivoted around and especially moved over to web, we saw this need, this like metaverse buzzword was sort of blowing up at the time. And because we were well positioned to basically like fill the need of the metaverse for all these online communities, we actually tried that. We were a metaverse as a service company. That was our one liner. And that did fail as an idea. You know, communities, they thought they wanted a 3D world, but when you give them one, nobody shows up. But one thing we did sort of understand through talking to like literally 100 communities is that they all do virtual events, whether that be trivia nights, watch parties, town halls. These are things that like they were doing and they were doing often, and a lot of them had a budget for. So I don't want to say like we like don't you know, we're just like idiots like with an idea that we're building blindly. Like there has been a lot of products sort of like iteration and discovery that went into where we're at today. I'll say, you know, things never turn out as planned. That's one thing you can count on as a business owner. So like a lot of our market, especially with the recent economic downturn, has sort of evaporated on us, which is why we're sort of branching out. But yeah, how we got to like this point, it wasn't all guesswork. You know, there's a little bit of blind conviction at first. You know, like every good idea, you know, there's a little bit of art involved, and you know, it can't all be scientific. And so that's sort of like why we're here.
Yeah. And we did build the sort of most minimum viable product that we could. So that is a 3D world with voice chat and screen share. I was like, okay, this is enough to start taking to community. So we didn't go and build like the Mario Kart or the Mario Party type fun games yet. We first started with like, yes, it was a lot of work to build this, but it still was like, you know, a couple months worth of work, right? It wasn't like our life's work or anything like that. And we took that to communities, and we are having communities. Now we're in this point where we have communities that hold events. And now we can iterate much more, I guess, with much more conviction, because we're watching users use it, and we see what sucks and we see what's good, and we double down on what's good and we fix what sucks, right? So we at least made it kind of past the sort of guesswork. Like at first it was like there's this core thesis that we had that we think 3D worlds have a lot of untapped potential in like sort of like the social consumer space. That was definitely like a blind leap, I'll say, and not necessarily like the best way of doing it, right? The lean startup way might have been to run an ad in a landing page without having built anything and figure out if there's interest. But we built the thing because we had a lot of experience in that, and we took that to communities, and now are sort of in that in a much more like reactive build mode where users are kind of like telling us what they want.
Roberto Lo said, would you say that it's better to first work at a company to get a required base knowledge? They want to make a startup, but they know they're missing out on a lot of knowledge to have a solid enterprise level product.
Yes, so people have different opinions on this, whatever. Some people are going to tell you to drop out of Harvard and do whatever and like whatever. But I personally think joining a company is important. It does depend on what you want to do. So if you specifically want to build deep tech, high scale databases, like you can't, like you have to join a specific type of company and be on a specific type of team or whatever. If you're still trying to, so that's like you have to join Google on their like cloud database team, right? Like so if you're really interested in like something very specific, you're only going to get that experience at a company that has like those big scale problems or whatever those specific problems. But I think the sweet spot, in my opinion, is you join a seed stage startup. So a startup that has some money to pay you a decent wage or a decent salary, has some runway. It's not going to fail tomorrow, because those companies typically let you wear a lot of different hats. They're hiring. They typically like to hire a generalist. I like to call them stem cells. Like they're looking to hire people that can kind of like become that can just like kind of work on whatever they need to work on, whatever's like this sort of like on fire problem. In companies like that, you can learn faster than anybody at Google, anybody at Facebook, anybody at Netflix. Like those are like the sweet spot for like really like launching your just really like learning super fast and like getting like experience. And then it also sets you up much better for creating your own startup, because now you've touched like 10 different technologies. You've like really figured out what you're good at. You might have even identified problems and things like that. Big companies, it's harder to get that because you join a big company, you're like a very small cog in a very large machine. You have, quarterly performance reviews. You have like all these like sort of big company politics in play, and then your surface area of influence is also very like small. At a big company, your job might be to do this one very small thing. The pace is much slower. You just don't get exposed to as much things. The plus side to a big company is you get paid. You get a lot more money. Big tech companies pay very well, especially public ones. There's a big chunk of your salary is going to be in stock. And it's a lot more chill from a work-life balance perspective. So if you did want to start a startup, a big company sets you up well financially. It sets you up well if you want to like moonlight something, like work on something at night. Big companies are good at that, but they're not great for accelerating your kind of like learning and progress as an engineer, in my opinion.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before. Dan wants to know what your tech stack is and if you would change anything on a fresh project.
Yeah, so tech stack, I went over it earlier, so I don't know if you maybe missed some of that, but it's Unity at the very bottom. It talks to a website that hosts it. That's a Next.js React website that uses TypeScript. I love TypeScript. And a Node backend, also TypeScript. Postgres database for keeping state. Redis for the cache. WebRTC we have a separate WebRTC server that just handles signaling there. And doing like the video and screen share stuff, and then we use some like SaaS company for the actual like multiplayer game multiplayer networkings, which is something we're probably gonna, in terms of like what we're gonna change, that's gonna be it. There's a number of reasons. One of them is that it uses WebSockets, which is like a TCP based technology, which doesn't work well for gaming, because gaming, you don't need that like sort of guarantee of message sending. It's better to fire and forget, because it's much lower overhead and it doesn't sort of back up if you're on like a cell network or whatever. So yeah, that would be the one thing that we're going to change is switching out the multiplayer side of things so that we can handle. We would switch that from WebSockets to WebRTC data channels. Which would be over UDP, which is kind of the only way to do UDP on the web. And then we can also run our own custom backend there, where if you have 1,000 people in a room at the same time, like you don't need to send, if somebody's very far away from you, you don't need to send all of the updates to every participant in the room. The backend can sort of decide who sees what. So somebody that's very close to you gets all the 60 FPS, awesome, nasty dance moves, but somebody that's 100 meters away only gets maybe like 2 FPS worth of the updates, like things like that.
Okay. We've got some TypeScript love happening in chat. See if we have any other questions. I don't think so there. But like, say with like going back to like, oh, actually, there you go. How do you plan to scale in performance and geography?
Yeah, so performance, so not just in performance. I think performance is relatively straightforward, so we don't have to go super deep into that. I think geography, it really depends on the use case, right? So if we build a game and it's a competitive esport, that's a very different problem than building like a social multiplayer world, right? Because in a competitive esport, you kind of need latency to be very low for everybody. So you kind of like, you'll split up, you'll shard things into regions. So you'll have like a North American server, a South American server, a Europe server. You'll probably have a American East server, American West server, and you'll split it up that way. for social products, it doesn't really matter that much. Really, the only thing that I like what I think is very important for us is making sure that the app loads fast. Like the actual multiplayer latency doesn't matter that much for our app because it's just kind of social. It's not like competitive esport, but we do want the app to load in less than 10 seconds for everybody, no matter where they are in the world. So the big thing we think about in terms of geographically scaling it is put everything behind a CDN, a content delivery network. What a CDN does is it takes one source of data. So for us, it's an S3 bucket, which is like a place where you store big files in Amazon. And a CDN basically distributes that all across the world. So you click on one link. So it'll be like images.theuniverse.gg / like hello world.png. If you're accessing that link from Europe, that's going to hit some edge like European server for the image versus if you're accessing it from somewhere else. So that's what a CDN kind of does that automatically. You just like point a CDN at like an S3 bucket, and it can sort of like do that distribution. So it's important for us because we host the game, which is like somewhere between 10 and 50 megabytes, depending on what world you're loading. All that data, like we want that to load super fast. So that's the big like tweak we make to make sure it loads fast geographically is like put it in front of a CDN. So anybody in the world loads something that's close to them geographically.
Can you talk to us about your customer discovery process and I can't say words. Product market fit process. There you go. I'm talented.
Yeah, customer discovery is Jack. He discovers customers by DMing them on Discord and Twitter. Just total hand-to-hand combat, pretty much. As we discover more markets, now we're starting to get a little more like cold, so inbound customers where it's like, hey, like a community did an event, somebody happened to be in that event, and they said, hey, this would be awesome for my thing. Like, so we start to get some attention that way. We also have a strong network in the startup community where so we have like kind of one angel investor that invests in a lot of different companies. So we talk to a lot of those companies who have event space type needs, things like that. So that's like customer discovery. In terms of product market fit, how do we like sort of navigate that cave? It's mostly just like we just join all of these events. We just join ourselves, so we get a pulse on it. Just by like being there. So we hear people that when we watch like sort of how people are thinking about it, we like one of the really positives, like one of the reasons we're still working on this is because we get really positive signals during these events. Like everybody thinks it's awesome when they're in there and they're on voice chat and they're saying, whoa, this is like cool. And like, so we get a lot of like really good positive signal there. Do you have anything to add?
No, I guess like at maybe a very high level, we have a sort of like hypothesis about what the market wants. We have a hypothesis on like how we can serve the market, what market we should be going after. Maybe there's some feature we need, so Neil will work on that. And then in parallel, I'll basically, as Neil said, just like knocking on doors. Typically you send 50 to 100 cold messages and you get like 1 to 2 responses. So it's really like a battle of attrition. But those 1 to 2 can quickly turn into 10. Like once, as Neil said, once you get 1 or 2 events and people show up to them, we do find that it sort of goes exponential. And product market fit really is just like that exponential process never dies. Like that's like damn near the definition of product market fit. And we've had some like I don't know, whispers of product market fit before the market kind of did its thing. So we were growing pretty rapidly and it did feel really good for a while. But like with anything, you can't count on it. So it kind of rug got pulled and now we're restarting. So that's sort of the process. And if we find that what we thought, our hypothesis of what our market should be is wrong, we just kind of reevaluate, put our heads together and figure out, okay, who can we tackle? And coming back to that initial question of like, shouldn't we be finding a market before we build? Totally. Like that, every time we go knocking on doors, we're not typically building during those times. We're finding the market. We know what we have. So we know the solution and we're looking for that problem in the market. And if we do find that market or that problem in the market, we tackle it. But if we don't, maybe we tweak our solution a little bit to something we did find. And it's truly just a very iterative process.
Okay, so it's 4:30, so I'm not sure what y'all's schedule is. We can end here. There are several other questions in chat, so if you see any of those that you're like, yeah, I got a few minutes, I'd answer that question. We can do that, whatever is good with you.
Revenue.
So we'll take maybe a couple questions. I think there's one about revenue and one about security. Is that what I saw?
And then there's evaluating dependencies before adding them to the product. That might be a good, because these are very coding heavy.
Yeah. So okay, that probably falls into the security bucket.
Yeah.
I like our security is not like we don't have any like major compliance needs or anything like that. On our end, it's like so by the way, the question is like, you know, how do we think about security in our software development lifecycle? I think was one of the questions. There's like a couple others maybe in the security bucket. For us, it's like our biggest like, okay, what would be the end of the world if somebody like attacked us? It would be if they had access to our AWS, that would not be good. If they had access to our database, like they could really, we could really have a rainy day there. Things like that. So we like security we take really seriously is like private keys and things like that. We make sure those stay private. We use like a cloud service called Z. It's actually a friend of ours. Their company, but it's kind of like a dashboard on top of AWS. They kind of help us handle with the security management and things like that. But ultimately, they're just using an AWS service for storing private keys behind the hood. On the user side, like typically you just only ask for what you need. So we don't even have like you can log in with Twitch, for example, on the universe, but we don't ask for like your stream key or anything like that. We just ask for like your Twitch account and that's it. So like we don't even have like attack vectors there. If somebody like had read access to our database, they wouldn't be able to do anything interesting, except for maybe get a few emails. But that's like they wouldn't have write access to any of your like kind of like social things, stuff like that. And then I guess like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like we don't think about the dependency thing. Like I'm like all you guys probably, like I look and make sure that it has like a bunch of stars on GitHub if I'm adding a dependency and is used by, has some like has some activity on the GitHub and things like that. I'm not like doing a huge vetting process of like making sure this thing like is, I'm not going through the same process that like the NSA would go through if they were like evaluating like a dependency, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like most definitely like, we keep our users safe in the sense that we don't ask for stuff we don't need. We keep ourselves safe in the sense that we have just like good practices in terms of like keeping our private keys private. Making sure that we don't, if we have a contractor doing some work or something, we don't give them access to stuff they don't need, stuff like that. But for the most part, it's not like something that matters that much. Maybe at some point, maybe we'll get DDoS and have to figure out something there and like whatever, and we can be more reactive there. But we don't have things that would even compromise like our users. We don't even store that kind of stuff. So that's our approach to security. And then what was the other one? Revenue, maybe?
Yeah, I think there's a revenue question.
Yeah, revenue kind of just going to depend on the market. If we go B2B and they, a company wants to hold a conference on our platform, we would charge them like a fee for that. Companies would pay for that quite a bit. If we're going more B2C, so we're really just targeting like consumer user, like typical users like you and me, then the ultimate goal is more like in-app purchase type stuff. So, if Ruth has her own world, like she can sell some digital t-shirts or something like that, and we would like take a cut of what users are purchasing in app. So something like that. And I think that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, maybe why Node will be the last question we answer.
Why Node? It's just faster to iterate with. I know it's not like the best sort of like high scale technology you can use, but it doesn't really matter. Like it talks to other things that are performant, things like Redis, right? That's written in C. So Node is just one of those things where it's just very, very easy to write software using Node. It's very easy to iterate. It's very easy to deploy and manage. As if that ever becomes a problem, which I don't foresee it being a problem in a while. I mean, I know big companies, billion-dollar companies have been built on Node, they've been built on PHP, they've been built on very sort of like, yeah, very different, like all sorts of different technologies. So if it does become a problem, we'll probably switch to something like Go or something like that if we need that extra bump.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say before y'all go?
No, not really. Just want to say thank you for having us. It was awesome meeting you and your community. Obviously, yeah, so the shameless plug here, I guess, is we got an app, the universe.gg. If you've got a community or even just a group of friends or whatever, or you have some ideas for what you would do in something like this, like hit us up. We're super active on like Twitter and stuff. Yeah, and I guess like keep crushing it, learning engineering or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm excited to see what everyone does.
Thank you. Thank you both for taking like an hour and a half out of your time and telling us about your app. I mean, there's a lot that I was like, oh, I don't know what that means, like SDLC. I just barely learned that. Anyway, but like it was really insightful and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. I appreciate you. Yeah, it was awesome. It was really fun.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck. And hopefully we have some people in here who are like, you know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
All right. Have a
Thanks,
good
everyone.
rest of your day.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
too.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. All right, y'all. All right. So I'm going to end stream here because whenever I try and load videos to YouTube, they're like 5 million hours long, and that's just not really, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are long. So we are going to start streaming like almost immediately after this again. We just got to separate the topics that we're doing. Thanks for like engaging with Jack and Neil. Y'all were great. So I will be back. I will be back. I mean, I guess we could talk about it a little if you want to. If you have any thoughts before we like close off this topic, I probably should do that. We should probably do that. Got a bunch of smart people who are like, what about XYZQ? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what XYZQ is. You feel a little Yeah. I'm glad that Oh, excellent. Excellent, Dan. Yeah, thank you all. I appreciate it. Lots of good questions. I probably will like go back and be like, okay, what are we talking about? And I'll like look at my face and I'll be like, or just like I just have been trying to stare at the camera, so there's that too. Oh, speaking of, I should close mute. Okay, but I'm gonna end stream now, and then I'll be back like immediately, and then we're gonna do some leet code. WTF meter. God, I wish someone make that and I will put it on stream. That would be so cool. Just like, and then you guys, how much you say, like, I don't know, like it would be cool. Anyway. BRB bitches. We'll be back. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Thank you for the follows and the subs, by the way.